Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Supply Chain Podcast. My name is Tom Raftery, and with me on the show today, I have my special guest, Padhu. Padhu, welcome to the podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Tom. Padhu Raman, Chief Product Officer and co-founder at Osa Commerce. I've been in the supply chain close to 25 plus years now, focused primarily on the e-commerce, retailer, and the 3PL customer journey.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about Osa Commerce, Padhu. What is it? What is it you guys are doing?
We are a technology provider. At Osa Commerce, we provide a collaborative visibility platform that primarily enables brands, retailers, manufacturers, and the logistics providers to connect the dots and so that they can connect, communicate, and collaborate efficiently.
Okay. What kind of visibility are we talking about? Because again, it's kind of a broad term. Give me a couple of practical examples of the kind of things that you're helping your customers do.
Primarily, if you think about the overall landscape from a supply chain perspective, it is a complex city where you are moving away from a single enterprise to a multi-enterprise solution, right? And that's how you solve the entire supply chain problem. You talk about globalization, you talk about e-commerce growth, and when you have e-commerce growth, you have ability to connect to multiple demand channels. So now your traditional way of thinking in one demand channel, now demand is getting more fluctuations. And then you're also looking at more hyper personalization with the e-commerce penetrating the market, both from a customer request perspective and the demand perspective. And so primarily we try to connect from the manufacturer to the end customer, the entire product, so that the customer journey becomes a product journey, and try to solve that as a visibility problem for effective decision making capabilities.
Okay. And so again, the connecting to the end customer could be logistics so that the end customer can see where the delivery is at this point in time. But I suspect that's not what we're talking about, is it?
Both, right? It is one from an end customer it is relative, right? Who is the end customer? The end customer could be viewed from an inbound perspective. If I am the 3PL or I am the shipper, I'm looking at my inbound visibility, the product coming from manufacturer to me. If I am a customer looking from a procurement or an e-commerce perspective, the end customer who is receiving the product at home, I'm looking at my orders I placed, and then from a shipper perspective, it becomes an outbound journey, right? So connecting both the inventory life cycle from a procurement to the e-commerce path, from there to the end customer, that will becomes order life cycle. Connecting both is what primarily drives the end-to-end visibility.
Okay. And what kind of industries are your customers in? Are they in everything, or are they in, I don't know, pharmaceutical, automotive, or is it specialized, or is it across the board?
It is generally across the board, but we primarily more focus on the lifestyle, consumer goods, electronics, and high-end fashion and apparel, footwear, more on the commodity retailer side. And then, but we do have some customers specializing in certain area of the verticals, but that's where our majority of customers focus towards today.
Okay. In terms of the kind of issues that you're helping solve, have you got any kind of practical examples you can talk to of problems that customers have had that you've managed to help them solve?
Okay. So I'll take a one use case and profile one customer and explain the entire journey. Um, Primarily, this customer gives a marketplace for specialized gift articles and goods. They are shipping the product, connecting to a lot of manufacturers and retailers and artisans in India and in Africa. So they have around 17,000 sellers and manufacturers that they connect to. They help them to ship the product across to US, North America, and Europe. They enable them to logistically transport the physical product. They enable them to make that available in their own marketplace, plus all the other different marketplaces. It could be Amazon, Etsy, their own marketplaces, Expo Bazaar. So what happens is, now think about the complexity in one, connecting all these manufacturers, artisans, to giving them visibility of the current inventory positions and giving them visibility of which demand channel the product is being sold. Fourth, giving them the visibility to the personalization and hyper personalization that the end customer is requesting and what modifications they can make. And then how much to actually manufacture, how much to plan for an replenishment stock. All those entities, they get a real time visibility. So, one, we are able to connect across all the entities, number one, across global as well. Then we are able to establish clear communication. They're able to understand which customer has ordered what is my inventory level at any point in time, what is my logistics cost, and what is my next cycle, how do I manufacture, replenish, and what to do across multiple entities. And then the better collaboration, right? Because now everybody is synchronized. Now your freight forwarder, your triage agent, your distribution associates, their labor supplier, manufacture the demand channel, the buyer, everybody looking at a single source of truth to provide a better experience, better convenience, and also engage the customer in a better way and then try to be more sustainable as well.
Okay. And if I am an Osa Commerce customer, how is that data presented to me? Is it an extra screen that I get? Is it a series of screens? Is it dashboards? How does it link into my current system?
Yeah, it's a great question. You have primarily, as a user, you need to have the flexibility and agility to consume the data. One, if you have no system or you have an outdated system, we provide our own dashboard and what we call as a customer portal, which and customers could be relative, right? Which are the end customer, the 3PL's customer could be a brand supplier, everybody looking at the same data through our what we call as a unified commerce tower, where they can look at the orders, inventory, freight charges, financial transactions. They can look at the billing, the cost, the freight charges, the logistics costs, the labor charges in one centralized platform. Apart from that, say you already have certain mechanism to consume the data, then we can expose through our own integration APIs and other mechanisms to expose and so that your entity can consume the data in your entities that are probably connected to multiple other systems, right? So we give the flexibility of internal data as well as external data as well.
Okay. And we've seen a huge explosion in talk about and interest in AI in the last 10 months or more, particularly since the release of ChatGPT. How is AI impacting you guys? I assume it's something that you've had built into your systems already, but with this new rise in interest, are you bringing in any of the newer generative AI technologies into your systems? And what use are you making of AI anyway?
Yeah, it's a great question. And see, as a technology provider, we continuously focus on adding new innovation and expanding and providing basically, if you think about supply chain itself, it's a very complex operation. But from an end user, from a consumer perspective, we have to simplify it. And that's where we continuously focus on how do we simplify this complex problem. In two, I'll just give you, we use AI in many places, but I'll select two areas where we are hyper focused on making this complexity more simple.
Cool.
One is where we are trying to do is in the integration, right? Because today, if you think about when you're connecting to multiple entities, your integration is one of the major challenges. It takes almost weeks and months. And some of the integration, if you look at a plan, it could be almost a year. Based on my past experience, I've seen this a major complex. What we provide here is to make two system talks to auto-generate the integration capabilities without human intervention. That's one area we are very focused on. The second area is also focused on decision making based on understanding the real-time metrics because we get a lot of data. When we are connected to multiple entities, we get order, inventory, finance, product life cycle, product management, product absolution. I mean, we get every bit of data in the whole entity. So we primarily make the journey of consuming the data using a better metrics management, creating a baseline. We try to automate all the entities. So the change management and consumption of the information could be in a most simple way, where we try to channelize or synthesize into three metrics that they look at on a daily basis. And those metrics are created through AI driven management. It could be a replenishment quantity, it could be an economic order quantity, or it could be an order consumption, how we want to manage. So we try to synthesize that.
Okay, what about things like robotics as well? Is that something that you guys are coming across, interested in, able to work with? How does that figure in?
Yeah, but robotics is actually going to penetrate everywhere. There are multiple avenues where robotics can help. One, I'll take a specific example is within our distribution centers, whereas we are seeing a lot of robotics penetration in the last couple of years, or maybe after Amazon put in the Kiva robots, there are a lot of increase in that area. So we definitely see robotics as one of the ways where we can optimize the execution of supply chain abilities. And secondly is also labor. The labor is getting a very big challenge. So distribution centers are looking for better way to actually meet the customer service level. So robotics is one way penetrating in every area. We basically work with multiple different robotics vendors, whether it's a goods to person or person to goods, primarily focusing on how to optimize the ability to pick, pack, and ship in the most efficient way at the most least cost that we can support it.
Okay. With all these multiple connections to multiple organizations in the whole value chain, is there the possibility that this is opening up new vulnerabilities for bad actors to come in?
Absolutely. The biggest challenge the industry today faces is definitely the what they call as a supply chain cyber challenges, right? The cyber data breaches, data security. And if you think about recent times, if you see even in Target, the many other places, this is continuously happening, right? So one of the things that we inherently built in the platform is a focus on the cybersecurity. Especially when we are connecting, because we connect to multiple entities, we hold multiple data. So the data becomes a predominant part. So we have to keep the security and the privacy as a key aspect. So we have a lot of ability to create that entity. We basically encrypt all the information. Especially when we are exchanging information across multiple systems, we focus on very rigorous and ability to security layer to connect. We put in a lot of tokens and ensuring that there is no leakage of information or no penetration of information. Apart from that, the majority of the time we also spend in actually educating the entire network, right? Because it's although we might be really in the forefront of from a security perspective, but not all players, because many of them are still in unstructured environment and people are still using. If we talk to when you connect to multiple carriers, they just don't have even a computer, right? So there are a lot of challenges that is still in the entities that is going on. So we also the time we focus on educating them and updating them what needs to happen from a cybersecurity perspective. And also we are building a framework on blockchain hyper technology so that we can enforce more security layers as part of it. So those are the broader things we are working on. One, continuous innovation. Two, change management and education to the entire entity and why it is important and how they can prevent themselves and prevent the entire ecosystem of the data, and continuously enhancing and encrypting and introducing the new innovative technologies to secure the information.
Okay, and it's interesting that you mentioned education, because I'm sure you're not just educating your customers about cybersecurity, but there must be other aspects as well that you have to educate your customers and their employees about your products.
Absolutely, right? I mean, it's a continuous, as part of the solution, we focus on, eh, because again, when always there is a technology change or a process change, apart from integration being a challenge in supply chain, the second biggest challenge is a change management. Whenever people are introduced to a change, there's always a resistance because it disturbs their day to day aspect. But once they understand the benefit, right? But ultimately, the technology actually solve three key problems, right? Hey, one, is it helping me and my customer in increasing the service level? Two, is it going to benefit me in saving the cost and also any loss cost? And three, is it going to help me in changing my lifestyle by increasing my revenue in every aspect of that, right? So once we are able to convince that this technology or this solution, because it's not just all over the platform, right? It is a combination of people, process, and the platform, right? So we have to take the people on board, introduce the right process. Technology is always there. There are technology, or there are a lot of technology out there. But if you don't have the right combination of the people, process, and platform, then it becomes a challenge in not any adoption. So we focus on educating them on the product. We provide them a lot of online access and educative tools and videos and webinars, continuously educate. And apart from that, as part of that, we also stress on data quality, breaking the data silos, security, unifying the information, and looking at driving everything over a system, which helps them to drive for better efficiency.
Looking across all of your customer base over the last number of years, what do you think are the main challenges that are facing them in supply chain these days?
It's definitely one is a siloed data, right? Data being very siloed. And as I said in the beginning, today's supply chain has moved outside from an inside enterprise to across enterprise, right? So that means how soon, how broader you share the data and break the data silos, that helps in the better visibility. Two, the second thing is we are connecting to multiple different disparate systems. There could be some of the systems are legacy systems, some are still they're using Excel, some are using advanced systems. So there has to be a normalization of connecting, and we see a lack of that standardization still happening, and people are doing it. And then third is definitely we talked about security and privacy and the different level of security they are in and how we can manage and do it. So these primarily connecting the data across disparate systems, standardization of the processes, and ultimately building them a kind of confidence and trust so that we can solve this entire complex in a more simple and easy way. And ultimately, they can collaborate. Once they break this, then they're able to collaborate. Then they can see, okay, cost is going down, revenue is increasing, and I'm able to serve my customers well.
Okay. And on the logistics front, talk to me a little bit about the advantages of centralized logistics.
So, in fact, well, it's a very good question. And in fact, if you think about what is the advantage of, I would say more of a centralized view and a decentralized execution, right? So you have with the system, everybody is able to look at same data at the centralized view perspective, but still they have ability to execute individually, right? A manufacturer is going to execute through his manufacturing system. A freight forwarder will have his own TMS. He's going to execute through his own systems. Custom clearance will be a different systems. And so every entity in the supply chain is still going to focus on decentralized execution. But ultimately, they're looking at the same data that is coming from the centralized logistics system, right? More of an hub where it understands how the orders are going to be. Second is how optimal, where do I allocate from a cost perspective, right? So you say you are out of Europe and you make an order in one of the marketplaces, the system should automatically recognize where you are ordering from, which is the nearest distribution center I should be able to allocate the orders to pick, pack, and ship to you at the shortest interval of time at the most optimal cost, right? If so, that's so again. If second thing is there could be no inventory available in that geolocation. Then what is the alternate nearest location? Okay, Americas is the next nearest location example, right? So it should be able to pick, pack from ship from America, right? So that is where your centralized logistic view will provide ability to manage, con- optimize, and then satisfy the customer experience, right? I'll give you Zara as a one fantastic example, right? Zara's, if you think about it, the entire, although they have all the network nearby, they connected it, but still, from a systemic perspective, they can do 12 inventory runs 3 to 4 times better than their competitors, right? And the design to, because I say high-end fashion, design to the finished product, they do it in 2 to 3 weeks. How is that possible? The main thing is they have connected all the entities and ecosystems in one centralized view. Each one is able to understand the progress, look at the decision making, and also exceptions management. The biggest advantage of centralized logistics system, not only planning and executing what has been planned, but when an exception happens, how do you recover from that? How do you reallocate? How do you remanage? And that is where the critical component comes into picture.
Okay. And looking ahead for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, what do you see as the main trends that are going to happen in supply chain? Where are things headed to?
So, it's a good question. If you think about overall period, what has come from a supply chain and e-commerce perspective, the beginning of like the 2000s or the early 2000s was more focused on the customer experience. You had the retail store, retail commerce, you had a malls, you had a big focus on customers coming in, the retail experience, and everything was like channeled, one channel, manufacturer to the distributor, the retailer, everything was optimized. When Amazon came, you got into convenience model, right? Which is in the 2010s, the past decade. So everybody got the convenience. It's I'm getting experience in my marketplace, but I'm getting convenience. I'm getting it delivered quicker, faster. Now, if the next aspect is engagement, people are looking how do I interact? How do I personalize? Even Google has disassociated from the marketplace and focusing on YouTube engagement and creating a shopping channel out of it, right? So the engagement becomes a major part. Social commerce coming into picture, right? And then finally, the sustainability, the re-commerce. So what I see is the past decades were focused on experience and convenience. The future decades is going to carry on that model, focused on more engaging and being sustainable. And all our supply chain e-commerce will revolve around all the factors: experience, convenience, engagement, and sustainability.
Nice. Nice. We're coming towards the end of the podcast now, Padhu. Is there any question I have not asked that you wish I had, or any aspect of this we haven't touched on that you think it's important for people to think about?
So generally, I would say supply chain is a very complex entity. We have to simplify. The biggest, as you did touch upon, is the artificial intelligence and AI and how it's going to impact. So one of the things that I think everybody has to think about in future with keeping AI as a framework is how are we going to live in a world of interoperability between AI and human interaction, and how is that going to play? Because you're going to integrate with systems with one on human side and AI other side. How is that all collaboration, communication, and connectivity is going to be established? Who is going to establish more of an authority in decision making, and always going to be a mutual learning across the ecosystems? And then finally, focusing on the transparency. How is that all going to play out? It's a big question. And I think a collaborative approach of technology and a proper thought process and execution with the right process, we can achieve that. I think that's what are the thought I think everybody has to start thinking that perspective.
Cool, cool. And if people would like to know more about yourself or any of the things we discussed on the podcast today, where would you have me direct them?
Yeah, they can email me at padhu@osacommerce.com or connect me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect and share my experiences. And as I said, mutual learning.
Great, great. Padhu, that's been really interesting. Thanks a million for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thanks for the time.